Let's go to Marwan Bishara, Al Jazeera senior political analyst. He joins us now from London. Marwan, it does appear there is this narrative being pushed now that the ceasefire in Iran has increased the likelihood of a ceasefire in Gaza. How true do you think that is?
That is one important factor, there's no doubt, especially in as far as Netanyahu being all smug now, playing the war hero after having been playing the wartime leader. He thinks he can afford one today, even if some of his more fascist, more fanatic coalition partners walk out on him. I think he needs it also in order to run for elections again. The Israeli public is also far more interested today after Iran in a deal. In fact, the most recent poll shows that 75% of Israelis want an end to the war, not just a ceasefire, an end to the war in return for all the hostages, the captives. 3, the Israeli military now is saying, actually admitting, believe it or not, that there is no more sites to strike in Gaza. There are not objectives in Gaza. Gaza is totally destroyed. Continuing the war now, in as far as the Israeli military is concerned, would be just an exercise in oblivion. And fourth and last, as we've been speaking throughout the evening, Trump seems to be putting pressure on Netanyahu in order to come up with a serious proposal to end the war, to have a ceasefire. And there are some leaks now, as one Israeli channel says, the Americans are telling Netanyahu, don't come to Washington until and unless there is a deal on the table.
If a ceasefire is reached in Gaza, could we see a refocus on expanding regional peace agreements like the Abraham Accords?
This is what they're betting on. I mean, the Israelis, that's probably some of the incentives that's going to be offered to the fascist coalition in Israel. It's an amazing reality we live in. It's a surrealistic situation we experience when Israel will be rewarded for its genocide in Gaza, 2 years of it, by normalizations of relations with certain Arab countries. It seems that is in the books. It seems from all the leaks that probably 1 or 2 countries might actually step forward, but that will require certain conditions and certain language, narrative from the Israelis about a Palestinian state, the path to a Palestinian state, the promise of a Palestinian state, a Palestinian state with conditions, all that vague language that probably lead to no Palestinian state. But be that as may, there are lots of leaks and talks about a potential normalization with 1 or 2 states down the road by the end of the year.
Marwan, even if there is more willingness for a deal and more pressure being faced by the various parties, what do you think will remain the key sticking points holding up a deal?
The main sticking point remains, for the time being, the end of the war. Netanyahu, up until now, insists that it has to be a temporary ceasefire because he wants to go back to war, because he wants to remain an occupying power directly in Gaza, meaning not only put it under siege, but occupying it. Already he's occupying more than 3/4 of it. I think he wants to stay there. He feels the pressure from his own coalition partners. He could maintain his government by maintaining his forces in Gaza. That's not workable. I'm not sure Hamas can afford it. And here is a bit of the dissymmetry, if you will, that could help the likes of Americans and Europeans to put pressure on Netanyahu. While Netanyahu feels all smug and powerful after Iran, he can afford to make compromises. Hamas is under so much pressure after having been steadfast the past 2 years. It's not going to give up the last 20 to 50 live or dead captives and not get an end to the war, because that will be a total, utter, final suicide of the movement. So they cannot but demand an end to the war. Netanyahu can afford an end to the war.
Well, the other big red line for Hamas is that Israeli troops have to pull out completely from Gaza. Can you imagine a situation where that is going to be acceptable to the Israeli government in its entirety?
Well, these are the things that I kind of meant implicitly by saying the end to the war. End to the war meaning the withdrawal all Israeli forces from Gaza. You can't end the war and maintain Israeli occupation in Gaza directly. So that will certainly be part and parcel of the deal. It will probably be put on some kind of a calendar, so it won't happen in a day or two, but it's going to have to happen. Even previous ceasefire proposals imagined that Israelis will start redeploying out of Gaza slowly but surely. An end to the war, meaning an end to the presence of Israeli military forces there. And also, as I said, this will probably be rejected by the Ben-Gvirs and the Smotrich and maybe a few other Likud members. But that's not very important for Netanyahu at this point in time, because he is now seen among a greater part of the public to be, a successful leader, a war hero of sort, because of the way he bombed Iran and the likes. So I think probably a lot of opposition parties would protect his coalition, will protect his government, will support him. And the worst case scenario, he probably will calculate that if he can please Trump, he beat Iran in 12 days of bombing, he can produce peace, hence he will also be a man of peace, run for elections, and hope for the best.
Marwan Bishara, Al Jazeera's senior political analyst, speaking to us there from London. Thank you.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.